I'm operating on like 2 hours sleep, so I don't know how well my brain functions. So
I think I'll get you fired up.
okay, not only the stress of things, but I was up all night with a six-year-old. That's hard to
Oh,
say.
anything serious or just?
So my daughter got sick on Friday, like
Mhm.
really bad, like congestion, like face, like sinus
Mhm.
congestion, and cough and mucus and gross stuff we don't like to talk about on a podcast. And
Yep.
um, I made her go get a COVID test, even though she's vaxxed, and it came back negative.
Hmm.
And then like 2 days later, my 6-year-old started coming down with the same exact thing. So he was miserable
Oof.
last night. Like his face just hurt, and he's like, my
Yeah.
nose hurts, and
Oh,
so
that's a bummer.
yeah, yeah. So tried to keep him comfortable last night, which meant I didn't get much sleep. So
Well, I am sorry to hear that, but I do think we have a fun topic today that I think will kind of get the adrenaline going.
okay.
So I actually have a prop to kick us off.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, so, I've been telling you a lot about how my parents sold the house that we grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
They've been there 37 years. They bought it when I was like 4 years old. And it's good for them. It's a really, really good thing. And so this past Sunday, my siblings and I went over and we cleaned out the attic. So all of it. And of course, all of us are like, we took all of our stuff when we moved out, and we all had more stuff there than we thought we did.
Can I pause you for a minute?
Yeah.
Is it when I'm picturing the attic from like Christmas Vacation, where he's up with the pull down string? Is it like that?
Pulled steps. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Continue.
So the four of us are up there laughing our asses off as we're kind of pulling boxes out, and we're handing them down to our spouses, at the bottom of the steps, and they're just kind of putting them in rooms. And I've been looking for this picture for ages, and I couldn't remember where I put it. And this does tie into our topic for today. The prop is our segue. Let me zoom out. But there we go. That is me in the costume. So you've posted the picture of the mascot,
which I thought was you for the longest time of me posting that picture, and come to find out it wasn't.
Yes, and that's fine. But this is the picture I've been looking for forever, and because I couldn't find this, I sent you just one that I Googled, and I searched for it and came across it. So it was a minor league baseball team in Atlantic City. They folded in like 2008. I was a summer intern in 2000, so 21 years ago. I did this, and at the time when I was going to school, I wanted to get into professional sports. I thought that's what I wanted to do, work for a professional sports team. And so I took this internship after my sophomore year, and it was a grind. It was, and it actually taught me what it needed to teach me, was that working in professional sports is, I don't want to say it's hard work, because that I don't want it to come across as I'm against that. It's a serious grind. It is like, you have to be dedicated. It is your life. Your job is your life. So for us as interns, like, we had our office job, and I worked in the events and promotions department. But then also as interns, we were supplementary game day staff. So we worked the stadium, and me and one of the other interns were responsible for finding people to participate in the various in-between innings events. So if you've ever been to a minor league baseball game,
which I have, and I don't know if you noticed the conversation yesterday on Twitter, but I was talking about the time I got kicked out of a minor league baseball game.
Oh no, I missed that one. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
For sneaking street tacos into the stadium.
Nice. Yeah, but you probably noticed that in between each inning, there's little antics that go on the field, and they bring people in. There's the dizzy bat race is a common one, but you have all these different little fun things, and obviously they're all sponsored. You get sponsor money for them. I was one of the ones responsible for finding people. So, side story to our side story, one of the events we had was like the big glove boxing. So you've seen those big cushion gloves. A lot of times, they also have like a little bouncy ring. So finding people there, and I would look for people could sign up for them, but then you would also look for people. Like I'd look for like the two guys that are there, like, or the group of people there where it's like a couple buddies, and find the two that would be interesting, or be interested in it, because they were always the fun ones. Because as you're getting ready to take them out on the field, they're cracking jokes, they're having fun. But the minute you say, "All right, go," they start wailing on each other, and they would go crazy. So, get back to our main side story here. You'd work the game, and like that means like at one point we had a 30-day homestand. So I would be at the office at 8:30 in the morning, including weekends, and then not getting home until after the game. So on weeknights, you're getting home at 11:30 at night. Weekends, you're there for a better part of each day during the weekend. And I'm just like, you know what, I'm working when everybody else is off. And I want a job that brings fulfillment, but I don't want my job to be my life. So that's what kind of led me down this path. But part of that is being the mascot. Yeah. So one of the grounds crew guys was the mascot during the game. Me and one of the other interns, we would do mascot appearances like during the day out and about. So whenever they contact the team about having the mascot appear, it'd be one of us. And that particular picture, I was at the Hamilton Mall in South Jersey. We had a couple players there at a table signing autographs, and me, I'm just walking around the mall and running up the kids and whatnot, and then and entertaining people on the line. But I walked past the picture people. I don't know if you've ever seen them in the mall. Yeah. So I walked past them, and then two other people, like they didn't have anybody in there at the moment. They ran out and grabbed me, and I basically did a photo shoot.
You got the nice 8x10 out of it.
No, I got a couple pictures, and we about a week later, an envelope shows up on my desk at work, and it's all of the pictures. And I'm like, I'm keeping this. And then when I got home from the internship, I showed them to my parents. My dad took one and put it up at his desk at work. And I was like, yep, this is what my kid's going to college for.
That is awesome. It's such a good story.
It is. And it's been one of my icebreakers. Ever since. I was a part-time baseball mascot as part of my college summer internship.
And it's such an amazing experience. Like those mascots have such impact, especially on the kids. Like they love those mascots. Or
they hate them.
Yeah, it's a love-hate relationship,
yes.
Right? So my parents, for maybe 15 years or so, were host families. In fact, we're the host family coordinator for the Ogden Raptors, a rookie league baseball team affiliated with, I think, the Angels or Dodgers right now in Utah. And they have a mascot that is a raptor. And my sister's daughter just is in love with that thing. Like they'll go to the baseball stadium and she'll just follow that mascot around everywhere he goes. And it's like, okay, he kind of needs to go on the field and do stuff now. And she'll have a meltdown. Like, I love that. I love that dinosaur.
Well, you get three types of kids when it comes to mascots. So the first two are young children. There's the young child who's like that absolutely loves the mascot. But then there's the child who is absolutely terrified. And parents
try to force the kids on.
Well, no, parents love both. Like the parents love both reactions.
Yeah.
So there you get when the child runs up and gives the mascot a hug. But then there's the parents who laugh their asses off when they're terrified and you chase the kids. And they thought both of that. Both of them are good. And then you have the teenagers who were just assholes.
Jerks. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like I got punched, I got kicked. That costume had a tail coming off the back because it was a sea serpent, and I was doing an event for Perfect Attendance Day for the Atlanta County School District, and I'm walking along, and next thing I notice, I realized because my field of vision is this.
Yeah,
I'm not walking forward anymore.
I would freak out having to wear that.
There's 4 kids that have grabbed my tail unbeknownst to me and are now pulling me backwards.
They're lucky you didn't rip the top off that and just wail on them.
Well, there was an incident at another thing where this 15, 16-year-old kid comes up and puts his heel right into the foot of the costume. Now, the thing is, like, when you're wearing a costume like that particular one, I was just in socks because like they look like
Yeah.
he was wearing baseball cleats, but like you couldn't put your shoes on.
Right.
So
Right.
his heel got my toe.
Oh. Oh.
And like I just kind of lost control. And I remember I kind of like stepped up on the kid, like just out of reaction, like out of instinct. And the
Mm-hmm.
kid must have been able to see my face because he's like, "What are you gonna do?" And all of a sudden I just saw headlines flash in front of my eyes.
Local
Mascot beats the crap.
mascot arrested for beating the crap out of junior high school student.
Exactly. No, that's exactly what went through my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where I wanted to segue this to was the topic I have for today is why is grinding seen as the only way to work, or at least in public public conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And really, let's narrow it down to social media.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, for my internship, like I said, like when I left that and I got back home and I really sat back and thought about it, I'm like, yes, I want a job that I can feel fulfilled. I want a job where it's honest hard work, where it's an honest hard work is not a bad thing, and grinding and hustling is not honest hard work. They're two different things.
Yeah.
Honest hard work I qualify as like where you're generating actual value for your clients, for your company, and you yourself feel fulfilled for what you're doing. You feel like you're creating something of value too. Grinding is not that. Grinding is like working yourself to burnout.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized is like something, you need to love that lifestyle to work in professional sports. Because years later, when I was talking to people, they knew people that worked for some of the pro sports teams around here, and they're like, yeah, there are times of the year they don't see the sun. Especially like in the winter when they're in the office before the sun's up, and then they're coming home long after the sun has set.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't necessarily know if I want that. Like, I want a balance in my life. I want a job that I feel like I'm accomplishing something, but then also provides me a way to go live. So why do people think that grinding as hard as you can for an indefinite amount of time until you burn out is the only way to go, right? It seems like there's this cognitive dissonance whenever you present some other way of working. Like, yeah, you can still, again, to use the cliche, honest, hard day's work, you could still do that without burning out, without answering emails at 10 p.m. And I've got several other questions here, but I guess maybe let's start with those.
Yeah, and the timing is good. I've been talking about this quite a bit on social media as of late. And speaking of the different kinds of kids that react to the mascot, I'm finding there are different kinds of people that react to this content. You have people that absolutely love it. You have people that are kind of on the sidelines just watching the reaction. And then you have this cohort of people that I never imagined who just want to fight you tooth and nail that what you're proposing is absolutely wrong. It's lazy. It's un-American. It's not how we work. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, really? We want to give everything we have and burn ourselves out for something that doesn't give us equal returns for that. I don't understand why you want to fight me so much on having some basic balance and control of your lifestyle, but they do. And you and I were having this conversation the other day. I think a big part of it is just culturally that we've baked it into our culture, not only how we talk, but how we educate our kids and how we go through our careers. We still kind of have this mentality that our value is measured in the number of widgets that we can produce. And a lot of the work cultures, a lot of the public education cultures are built around this concept of manufacturing. And we're just not a manufacturing giant anymore. Sure, it exists, but by and large, we're not a country that is built on top of manufacturing. We don't have massive assembly lines that people are cranking out widgets. And if we do, they're mostly automated with robots. You have a few high end engineers that are managing the process, but you don't have people that are taking component A and putting it on component B and sending it down the line, and they're getting measured on how many they produce in an hour. We just don't do that anymore. Yet that mentality has persisted, and we still want to measure ourselves on this number of widgets produced metric that is no longer makes sense for what it is that we do. I think that that is a huge part of the reason why things are the way they are, and to double down on that, people just don't like change. They think recency, the recency bias tells them that this is the way that it's always been, and what are you even talking about that we're going to change this model to something else? This is how it's always been, so we're sticking with it. You know, do some hard work, pull up your boots, let's go to work, let's work hard. And
Yeah.
I think it's unfortunate because I've mentioned this multiple times. We've got this disconnect with knowledge work where it's not hard because it's not physically as taxing as maybe a more blue collar work or a more assembly line type of work, but it is just as taxing. It is very, very hard to do that type of work. And not only mentally, but physically, like, you know, like try to sit in the desk for 8 hours and truly do really, really hard mental work. Like physically, you're beat up at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And going back to the internship, like there was one point, the general manager, and you and I have had conversations on the side about this. Like when, you know, early in my career, I was just introduced to these, like, I'm gonna call them, like, you know, these burnout bad habits. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you grind. Every minute you're in the office, you're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I kind of got introduced to those early in my career, and it took a while to really change it. As much as, like, there was part of me that was saying, it was like, you know, I don't want work to be my life, but there is also the other part of me that is a workaholic. I am an
Mm-hmm.
admitted workaholic, and it's only, you know, events in the past that have kind of come back, and, you know, some more recent personal events, and I'm like, no, I don't. I want to I want to I want to stop using the cliche of hard work, but, like, I'm not saying slack off. I'm not saying just throw caution to the wind and do half-ass work. I'm not talking about that, but I don't want to be that workaholic anymore. And,
Yeah.
you know, seeing other people where, like, I mean, there is serious cognitive dissonance out there, and I've almost come to believe it's almost like a bit of a Stockholm syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Finish your
I was
thought.
gonna say, like, it's been beat into people, and I'm even gonna say go um, back to school, like, you know, going back to school. And this is coming from the husband of a school teacher, saying that, like, you know, like, this is kind of beaten into people, this, you know, just grind. And then when they get into that first job, it's, come on, keep going. You're on the clock, keep going,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the point where, you know, people suffer serious burnout, and they sometimes they don't even realize it.
Yeah, no, and I think you bring up a good point with the Stockholm syndrome as it relates to public school. It's 12, 13 years of that over and over and over again, kind of beating into us that we have to be here from this hour to this hour. We have to crank out X amount of work, which tends to align with how we then go out into the workforce. We're measured by sitting in our seat from this hour to this hour, just like we did in school, and we're measured with how quickly we got our homework done and turned it in. But we're not having the conversation about the actual value that we're creating, and I think that that's both where education and employment needs to shift to. Because to your point, we're not talking about being lazy. We're not talking about not doing hard work. We're talking about being realistic about what we can do in a given time frame, and changing the conversation of stop measuring me on the number of widgets I produced. Stop measuring me on when I punched in and punched out, and start measuring me on what I'm actually creating. And when you do that, I think it really changes the conversation. As I've mentioned both internally at 33.6 and externally, I've been very open in sharing my calendar, and I know you recently picked up the same software that I'm using to track my time, so I can understand
Mhm.
where it's going. I've been very open in sharing that publicly as well, saying, look, some of these days, like last week was a really, really busy week for me. Um, my most work days, I was topping out just over 6 hours. Most days I wasn't. I was like 4.5. And I said we have to be realistic that that's what we can do, or at least that's what I can do. Maybe there are people that can do more. Maybe there are people that can do less. I just have to be realistic with myself on what I can do. And when we're talking about shifting the conversation from production to the quality of what we're creating, that's where I think this conversation becomes so important. Because what I've found, and you can see it in my time report, is that I'll start really, really strong on Monday. In fact, I'm going to go back to it last week. So last week, Monday, 6 hours and 30 minutes of productive time, like working on direct work. Tuesday, even better, 6 hours and 45 minutes. But then Wednesday 5 hours, Thursday 4 hours, Friday 3 hours. And it wasn't necessarily by design. It was, I only have so much cognitive ability to like hang on to that workload for so long. And if I were to push it, I know that sure, I can get the metric that maybe people want to see, but the quality of my work is going to suffer. There's definitely diminishing returns that are happening as I start to work those more and more hours. So if we shift that conversation from how many hours did you work to, well, what were you able to do in those hours? I think it completely changes the game and how we choose to measure and look at what is important. And again, it's not about hard work. It's not saying, well, you didn't work hard because you only worked 4 out of 8 hours. It's, wow, you worked incredibly hard because in those 4 hours, you were able to do 1, 2, and 3 at a very high level. That's the conversation that's missing.
Yeah. Why is burnout kind of seen as this badge of honor?
Well, I think it plays back into this conversation that we're being measured on time. We're being measured on how hard we are working, and I'll tell you a couple stories of that. So, one, just in the consulting space, it absolutely is. In fact, I got into an interesting conversation with a lady on LinkedIn where I said, this is ridiculous that we're working consultants these hours. Like 35 billable hours a week is unattainable at 40 hours. And she's like, you're right. That's why consultants need to be working 60 hours at a minimum. In fact, when I was really at the top of my game, I was doing 80 hours a week, and I'm like, that's asinine. Like, no one should be doing. That's not healthy. And not only is it not healthy, again, this concept of diminishing returns, those upper ends of those working hours. I hope your clients don't really give a crap about what you're producing, because it's going to really, really suffer at those. But again, I don't think she's an outlier. I think there's a lot of people, especially in services, that wear it as a badge of honor that they can work harder and longer than the average employee. And I think you're right. This goes back to just how it's been beaten into us, that this is how we're measured. We sit at a desk between these hours, and that is to be worn as a badge of honor. In fact, think about, your wife teaches elementary school, right?
Yep.
Think about some of the awards that they give out to students that reinforces this behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of I'm thinking of one specifically. It's the consecutive attendance award.
Oh yeah, the perfect attendance.
Like, what kind of crap is that? Like, so we're basically telling the kids, like, in order to be recognized and rewarded, you have to come in when you're sick, when you're absolutely burned out and you can't do any more work, when you like, that's what we're beating into kids. Is it any wonder we get into the workplace and we're like, Bob, why the hell are you here? You're like sick. You're like sweating because you have a fever. It's like, no, I can power through this. I got to get my perfect attendance record. It's got to stay intact. Like, this is crazy, right? Like, this isn't how we should be working. We're not robots. It's okay to take some downtime.
Yeah. Funny enough, you bring up perfect attendance. I found my 8th grade report card. 1.5 days missed.
Congratulations, Jim.
Yeah, I know that has. I mean, that is what has propelled me. The only missing a day and a half of school of 8th grade. That is what has propelled me in my career.
Yeah, I'm sure that was the difference maker right there. So, but yeah, I mean, back to your question, I think we've been led to believe that perfect attendance, and not only perfect attendance, but staying after to help the teacher clean the blackboards, that's an outdated analogy for all you young kids out there.
Oh yeah, they don't exist anymore.
Those don't exist. But you know what I'm saying? Like, not only the perfect attendance, but showing up early, going like we just wear that as a badge of honor that we're all in. And that's all we can focus on. And that's just not realistic on how we operate as humans. We're multifaceted and dimensional, and we need all of these things in alignment in our life in order to operate at a very high level. My first job out of college, I worked with a guy that was very much like this. Not only was he wearing it as a badge of honor of how many hours he could put in, he got to the point where, and we may have talked about a similar story to this with the firefighter, the local volunteer
Yep.
firefighter that ended up
Yeah, we've
starting
had
some.
that happen here too.
Like he would actually start bugs in the software just so he could stay up all night to have the glory of fixing them. Like we've built this more mentality into us that we just got to grind and push. And when there's a emergency, we're the ones that are gonna, even though we've been working 80 hours, we're gonna stay up all night till 3 a.m. to fix it. It's just not sustainable, and we can lie to ourselves and say, no, the endorphin rush, the high keeps us going. At some point in time,
You just crash.
everybody's going to crash and burn.
Yeah.
And when you do, hopefully it's just a thing where a little bit of downtime will help recenter you. But man, I've seen some people that have become so depleted, it's taken years to like get them right mentally and physically to get back into the workforce as a productive team member. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
it's
I'm
not
reminded.
healthy.
Yeah, I'm reminded of this story that Suzanne talks about. Her brother was filming a movie over in Santorini, Greece, and she and her parents were invited to come over and spend some time with him there, see the set and everything. But it would have been before the school year let out, and she's like, nope, I can't go. Like, I owe it to the school. I owe it to everybody. I need to finish this out. While school year ends, she gets laid off. She got let go.
Yeah.
And she's like, like I could have gone, but I put, my job first, do my job, make sure like everything, goes well. I forego, some kind of personal benefit, and they still don't care.
Yeah.
They didn't credit, she's like, they didn't credit me for that. They didn't, they didn't say, well, maybe we should. Nope. She got let go. They let her go. And she's like, and then that kind of made her realize at the time, like, if you died, they will have somebody in your seat
Yeah.
before, before your desk is cold. Your chair will still be warm.
Yeah. And again, I want to be careful because I don't want people to think we're talking about being lazy or being, what's the other
No,
word, that
we're not
doing.
slacking off.
We're not slacking off. We're not doing things just to be obstinate. Like these are very deliberate decisions we're making, and we're trying to keep things in balance. So to that story, I have two stories that kind of align with that. So my nephew's a hockey player, fairly high level hockey player, for his age group, and this past year, he's played in several out-of-state tournaments that his team has been invited to as kind of this exchange program to play teams from like Canada and Finland and Sweden, and just this opportunity to meet these other people, learn about their culture, and play hockey together. The school called my sister in and said, if he misses one more day of school, we're going to call DCFS on you.
For
And
truancy.
yeah, for truancy, and we're gonna file charges. And like, what is happening here? Like, it's not like he's sloughing school, and I don't know what the term is the kids use these days. I think the British use bunking off. It's not like it's like, okay, this is an amazing opportunity to build experiences and learn about other cultures, and this should be taken into consideration with the totality of what the kids are learning. Why are we penalizing this? And a similar story to that, again, things we learn in school kind of pull forward into our careers. I talked about this a little bit on LinkedIn. In fact, I've known a couple people that this has happened to, where they've taken time off. In one case, paternity leave, first child, and company sponsored, by the way. And then upon return to work, their boss pretty much beat them up and said, I hope you're planning on working kind of double and triple time to make up those 6 weeks that you took off. That wasn't just time that you could spend with your family.
It was
owe
just
that back
delayed
to us.
work.
It was just delayed work. You have to make that back up to us. So, kind of like this thing. It's like, okay, well, that's fine that you went to this international hockey tournament, but that we're not giving you a free pass. You got to come back and like do double and triple time. That's something completely separate. It's like, how wrong is this story that we're telling to ourselves, that the work is more important than everything else, and that everything else is somehow separate from that.
Mhm.
It's just, I can give a little bit of pass on the school thing. I can't give a pass on the work thing, that we're saying, you don't have the right to hurt our productivity. So if you're taking time off, damn it, you better do twice as much work when you get back to make that up. I mean,
Yeah.
this hustle mentality, this grind
Yeah.
mentality that's just destroying us.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also the flip side of what we were talking about with burning out being a badge of honor. There's shaming of people who don't burn out.
Yeah.
And think about it. Think about us. We're even self-censoring in a way because we have to keep repeating. We're not talking about working hard. We're not
Right.
talking about slacking off. We're not talking about quitting our job and running up credit card debt. We're not talking about that. We're still talking about, putting in work, creating value for us, creating value for ourselves personally, and creating value for our clients. But we're not talking about doing it at 60, 65 hours a week, doing it at that kind of clip.
Yeah. And
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 so,
that's oh, sorry, go
and,
ahead.
I was going to say, and so what that is while there's the praise for those that do burn themselves out, there's shame for those that don't.
Yeah.
Oh, so and so's leaving at 5 today.
Yeah.
Oh, so and so got here at 9. Like there was one
And we
point.
make jokes about it too. Oh, working part time now, Oh,
Yeah.
taking a half day, are you?
Yeah. And I mean, this goes into the whole unlimited PTO conversation we've had multiple times. Like we've had follow-up conversations about that, where these companies that pitch, and I don't want to get on that topic, but I want to say there's a direct relationship here. Those companies that pitch having unlimited PTO and they say you could take it off, but you get the side eye from your coworkers. Oh, you're
Right.
taking off now?
Oh, you're
Oh,
going.
you're leaving us. We got a massive release coming, and you're going to take a week and a half off now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. In fact, as you were talking about it, it reminded me of an event during my first job out of college. Looking back on it, I had a lot of these same ideas way back then. Like I often think, and again, we have this recency bias thing happening. I think that a lot of the stuff we're doing at 33.6 just happened at 33.6, and the reality is that no, a lot of these seeds were planted a long, long time
Mm-hmm.
ago. And I remember one specific occasion, my first job out of college. I was really kind of into Taoism and Zen, and really being balanced in my work. And I remember it wasn't my direct manager, but one of his kind of peers pulled me aside one day and said something like, "Man, you're not a very driven individual, are you?" And I said, "What is that supposed to mean?" He's like, "You just don't seem to have a lot of hustle and drive to do much. You're just kind of taking it easy." And I'm like, I prefer to look at it that I'm taking it in a more deliberate way to go great distances that I want to go. I just don't think that I'm going to be able to get to the heights that I want to get to by running as fast as I can all the time. And so I see your perspective, that you see me as not motivated and not driven. I see it the flip side, that I'm highly motivated and highly driven to achieve something that I know is way, way out there. And the only way to get there is to conserve my energy and time to do this for a long, long time, to be resilient.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I choose to look at it.
Yeah. Like, they talk about those athletes that, they're those ones that they appear to be kind of lollygagging, but they're
Yeah.
not. They're
Yeah.
staying in the play. They're watching the play, but they're conserving their energy. So the
Hmm.
minute they see a window, bam, they take off
Yeah.
and they do what they need to do.
Yeah. And it's frustrating, because as experts can realize that in sports, it's like, they're in the zone where the game, we've talked about it, just slows down. So it looks like they're not putting in the effort, but they're putting in amazing amounts of effort. They've gotten to a point where they're able to keep all of these things under control and conserve energy and processing power and use it when it's needed. The same thing happens in the business world, but there are very, very few people that recognize it. And what it does is it reinforces the hustle behavior. Again, I'm going to go back to my first job out of college, where this absolutely happened with a couple of my team members that were consistently getting promoted and getting bonuses because of how hard they were working. It's the Seinfeld episode where George says that his approach is to just always look frustrated and busy all the time. So he's like, just rustling the papers. Like, I worked with that type of person where they made a lot of this, like big motions, like, look how hard I'm running. I'm sweating. I'm running hard. I'm going 100 miles an hour all the time. And to most middle managers, they're like, wow, well, that guy,
They're working
he's a
their ass
worker.
off.
They are working hard. He deserves some recognition. Let's give him a bonus. Let's give him a raise. And then, as I said, you have these managers that look at it and say, they look at a Jason and they're like, man, that guy is lazy, no good. What is he doing here? It doesn't even look like he's trying. He's just kind of just floating through. We're not going to recognize that. That's not, we need to recognize the hard workers. So if that mentality is how we work, do we have any expectation that it's ever going to change? Because if as an employee, I'm getting rewarded for the making lots of motions, what am I going to do when I get into management? Well, I'm going to expect that my employees now to make lots of motions and look like they're running around like crazy. And I'm not going to recognize the people that are doing it a little bit more under control and have the intelligence and experience to slow the game down.
Yeah.
If it looks too easy, they must not be working hard. So
yeah, like and you're absolutely right. You said it a few minutes ago, and I wanted to touch on it too. Like these are seeds that were planted with me a long time ago as well. And like there was always like this little thing in the back of my mind, as even though while falling into kind of like the workaholic, habits. Because I did, like I fell into for a while there. Let me show them how I'm putting in excuse me. Putting in 45, 50, 55 hours a week, 60 hours a week. I'm going to show them. Meanwhile, what I didn't realize I was doing at the time was they're looking at it like, hey, free work.
Yeah.
I don't have to hire somebody.
Yeah.
I don't have to hire another person.
Yeah.
But there was always this quote that stuck with me, and it's the if you have a job you love, you never work a day in your life. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't stressful times, difficult times, but kind of going along that is find something, I've always been trying to find something you enjoy being, a place where you enjoy being, and you don't have to work, to that level of, overwork. Let's call it what it is overworking just to get the basics done. So, go out and enjoy your life.
And again, let's be brutally clear here. And I hate that we even have to caveat this conversation
multiple times.
Multiple times. The reality is, if we're being truthful with each other, we're creating more with less than most people. And we have to be okay saying that, because again, if all we're doing is looking at the perception of work, the perception of how hard we're working, the number of hours we put in, it's kind of devaluing the conversation of, yeah, but in that time, and it's not in spite of it, it's because of that, because of where we've slowed it down, because we've been realistic about ourselves on what we can and can't do within a certain time frame, that we've been able to create more with less. And it's kind of like a cheesy saying, but it's true. Right?
Oh, it's incredibly true.
So we need to be, for people listening, and again, I hate that we have to keep saying this. The fact is that it's not about doing less, and just look at the work we're doing with our clients. If someone were to come in and say, well, compared to what company X does, they would have billed maybe 5 times the number of hours that you guys are billing for this client. I don't care. We delivered 50 times the amount of value that they were able to create in 10 times the amount of work. That's what matters.
Yeah, because if you think about it too, when you focus on the amount of hours you're putting in, how many of those hours were you actually working? And anything, above a certain threshold, like especially like when you start working over 35 hours a week.
Yeah.
And even maybe even less than that.
It's hard, but yeah.
But like, okay, maybe like not each hour or each minute of each hour there is like actual, like hands on keyboard or whatever.
Yeah.
But like when you have more than 35 hours a week dedicated to some form of work,
Hmm.
eventually the diminishing quality, and you touched on it earlier. It's very, very real. And I've noticed that in myself when I kind of go into those states where it's like, you know what, I got to grind for the next couple days to get this done to help a client meet a critical deadline. At some point, like I have to take a step away and be like, because now the quality is starting to
Yeah.
diminish. I'm making mistakes and I have to go back to fix them.
Yeah. I mean, that's it right there.
Because, think about it too. Like, those people that are putting in saying like consultants need to work 60 hours a week. How much of that time, if they're doing 60 hours a week in, week out, how much of that time is going back and doing the same thing 2 and 3 times because they made mistakes?
A lot. Either going back and fixing it, or it just goes unnoticed,
Yeah.
which is maybe probably even worse. So no, it happens. It happens a lot. I'm not going to out any big agencies by name, but big agencies are known for this. And in fact, a lot of the work, especially early on at 33.6, was us going in after a big agency had been at a client, and we get in there. It's like, this is an absolute dumpster fire. And it's hard to blame the consultants, because a lot of this is their 50th hour of work that they're putting in on this client. Like, no one can do good work at that.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably smart, capable consultants, but not at 50 hours a week. They're not. And so we've made a lot of our money going in and fixing the work that's been done by these consultants that are billing 50, 60 hours a week, because they just simply can't do their best work at that rate. It's just
Yeah.
not possible.
Yeah. So as we start to wrap up, I want to quickly touch on like why this exists. And you and I talked a bit about this yesterday offline. And I think there's a couple different reasons why there's such cognitive dissonance from some people when it comes to saying there's other ways to be productive at work, create value, have a fulfilling job, have honest work. You're delivering something that your customer values. And a lot of that cognitive dissonance it goes back to Stockholm syndrome, in the fact that these people have been beaten down so long. This is the only way, and I've had to deal with it. So others have to deal with it now too.
I think that's part of it. I think there is a inclusionary aspect to the club, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I had to go through it, then you have to go through it too, which I think is completely unfair. And we've talked about this as well, as far as like helping others get down the trail, where we say, well, I'm the one that blazed the trail, so I'm going to destroy it behind me, because if I had to do it, then everyone has to do it. But that's not how amazing things get done. You have people that blaze trails, and then you have people that save energy because that trail has been cut, to go on and then extend that trail to do something even more amazing. That's how we progress. And so we need to get rid of that mentality that just because I went through it, everyone has to go through it. That's extremely toxic and unhealthy. And then I think a second part of the equation is we need to start being more honest with ourselves on what it is that we are actually doing from a work perspective. And I would challenge you, and I put a post on LinkedIn about this. I would challenge everybody for just a couple weeks. Take very deliberate note of your time that you're working, and be honest about it. Don't fudge this. Don't stretch it. Be very honest in keeping track. Just keep a time journal. And there's some great software out there. There's some great free software out there to do it. Just keep track for 2 weeks of what you do. Because when I talk to a lot of people, they say, well, I don't understand what you're talking about. Why is this so hard? I work 8 hours a day. I go into the office for 9 hours a day. You go in and then you leave 9 hours later. Doesn't mean you're working that whole time. In fact, you're not working that whole time. And that's a big conversation that we have to have with ourselves. This isn't a conversation we have with our teams. This isn't something that we do at an all hands meeting. This is something that we have to reckon with ourselves, that we've convinced ourselves that the minute we walk in the office doors to the minute we leave, we worked that entire time. And that's this concept of this 8 hours. Like, well, I worked 40 hours this week. No, you didn't. You were there for 40 hours, but you surely didn't put in 40 hours of work. So let's reset that expectation of what we're actually doing from a work standpoint. And again, the easiest way to do this is just take a journal. 2 weeks is all it's going to take to deliberately know in 30-minute blocks every time that you're doing actually work. And if you're honest with yourself, I think you'll be surprised that you're probably coming in somewhere between 28 and 32 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's realistic.
Yeah.
So I think it's those two components combined. One, we've convinced ourselves that we're actually doing 8 hours of work a week, and two, we have this unhealthy mentality that, well, if I had to do it, then you have to do it too.
Yep. And I
Absolutely
need to
not.
make sure other people do it so I can be in the club.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's
No.
not how it should work.
And just, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Life is way too short, and I've had way too many reminders throughout my life. It's like, you know what? Do the work you need to do to then be able to go have some fun. Don't make work the only thing.
Yeah. This feeds into so many different conversations that we've been having, and a big part of it is our uncomfortableness with having a singularity of who we are, meaning that we've somehow been able to carve off the professional life from our personal life. And we say, well, this is what I'm going to do in my professional life. And when I hang that up or when I get enough done, then, the personal life is going to rise up over here. It's like, we're one person. We're not a different person when we walk into work, and we're not, a different person. We're the same person. And what we need to realize is that same person is complex. There's work, there's personal, there's other things that happen. Let's stop trying to pull those things apart and say, there's a way that we can enjoy our life in totality by saying, this is just who I am. This is Jason, this is Jim, and part of that is doing work, and part of that is enjoying the labors of that work now, and part of that is planning for the future, and part of that is doing things in the moment. You have to look at it as a whole in order to do that. And you're right. I think the most important lesson is that we don't have anything but the moment. And so if we're constantly delaying and saying, well, everything has to be about work now, but sometime in the future, it's a losing mentality.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen way too many people do that.
Yeah.
They put it off, put it off, put it off. They put off that trip until, and then something happens and that trip never happens.
Yeah. Buy the ticket, take the ride.
Yep. Cool. Well, this is fun.
All right. Agreed.
All righty. So we'll go ahead and wrap up for now and catch everybody later.
Yep.